Hey, welcome to the Dear Creator YouTube channel. I am Danny Daniela, your self-investing storyteller. And today I'm going to go through a few pieces of content that's centered around major topics in the election. And I might not even get this video out in time for the final day to vote, but I've come across a lot of content that I want to share with you all. I'm going to present the content creators and the fact that they were able to present this content in order for me to create a presentation for you all to think on the good. So, forgive me in advance if I'm not as intelligent as I need to be in the political space. Forgive me in advance if I do not have the words to put together in such a poetic way so that we can receive it and hopefully go in the right direction. But I'm putting this all out now because I have no idea why I am inspired to do this video, because it's a very strong topic, but I've just seen it through so many different lenses from the pieces of content I want to share with you all. So the topic is about morality, and it's about the topic of choosing a president that has morals. And it's also going to be centered around the conversation of abortion. So, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a few pieces of content that I've come across in my algorithm that's talking about the election, and we're talking about morality, and we're talking about abortions. Because one thing I think that we're missing is we have two different sides. So, we're set up to have two different sides. It's the right or the left. It's people, either you're all on one side or you're all on the other side. What I want to encourage us to do is to be critical thinkers about what would it be like if we were able to take what's good and working from one side and what's good and working from another side and bring it together. Again, forgive me if that's not already happening in the United States of America, but from where I'm sitting, it seems like we're doing a lot of more division and we're choosing sides. And if one side has something that's wrong with it, we have to go really hard for that side anyway and make excuses for any of the things on that side because we're on that side, instead of saying, "Hey, I'm able to think for myself. I do agree with most of the issues on this side, but there's some issues that I have with the policies or the candidate." The same thing on the other side. The reason why I'm bringing this conversation up is because on this channel, I'm focused on self-awareness. Focused on better relationships with ourselves, the way we speak to ourselves, the way that we speak to one another. And this is pretty much the hottest season, the political season, where we go at it with one another. People stop talking with one another. People's opinion are so strong that if someone's opinion is different from theirs, that they just automatically, that person becomes stupid and idiotic, and they don't have anything that comes out of their mouths that is respectful and mindful. So I've been looking for content that's talking about the election and the politicians in a way where we're not attacking them person, but we're actually listening to what are they standing for? What are they about? Instead of digging into all the other things, I'm very interested in how does this change the world? And even though I watch all this content, I'm still in a place where none of these people are really going to change it for us all. We as the people have to make decisions that's going to not only be for our own well-being, but for the well-being of one another. This is why I am an advocate for scriptures like love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor as yourself means that you have to find a love for yourself first. And then you're able to listen, I identify with the struggles or the scenarios that's coming up and see the big picture where you're able to cultivate a community of love. What if we made that one of our foundational points in living life in general? Beyond an election, within an election, what if we made that a principle? And this is what I'm going to try to bring home, y'all. I don't know if it's going to bring home, but here's what I've been thinking about. The election has made me think about a lot of things, because once upon a time I was not thinking about these things, but it has made me think about a lot of things. And one being, why don't we have both a man and woman working together as a unit, being leaders of this world? Why are we separated to be just one man or one woman? I know that we have all of these different pockets of the government. I did not pay attention that much in government class. It was so boring. But I know that there's these other pockets of the government. And my theory is that there's something that we can learn from the way that a woman has been created, and there's things that we can learn from how a man is created, and we can work together. But we're spending a lot of time in this election season worried about the color of someone's skin, whether they're a man or woman. We're worried about if they what their sexual experiences have been. We're not really talking about what comes from someone having a moral a moral blueprint for how they're making decisions. And this is why I'm going to bring you up the first clip, because this has inspired this conversation about morality. Is because you hopefully we'll see it. I'm not sure if actually we're not going to get to this point. I'm going to have to describe it. But I'm going to put the link in the description to this podcast called Hardly Initiated. They had a panel of people talking about politics. And the thing that stood out to me and which inspired today's video is that there was a question about the character of the president, the potential president. Do we care about morality? And the sentiment was we don't care about their morals. We care about the fact that rent is high and that groceries are high and that we're not having money in our pockets. This is what I heard in the video. So you guys go back and watch this video. I'm not going to put the link. But I don't know. Am I the only person that thinks that's so interesting to say? That we care more about the money instead of the morals. And there was a man on here, I haven't heard of him before, but his name is D1, and he mentioned that he leads with Christianity, that he's a man of God, and he said that he leads with morals being how he makes his decision. So morals is a big deal to him. And if we don't have those morals, then how are we're going to be leading with money, which is going to be that's going to become our god. And then if it doesn't serve us, then we're going to be coming out here fighting. He didn't say all of that, but that's what I gathered from it, is that how can we not lead with morals? That's supposed to be the blueprint for us being able to have money and issue money in ways that absolutely helps the whole community, right? If we have someone who doesn't have any morals and they are in control of the money, they could scam you, they could be greedy, they can make it so that we all around here are, where's our money? We don't have any money. So now that's our God, instead of us having principles that care about one another, so that we wouldn't want anyone in a situation that promotes poverty if it's not about their choices, which I want to talk about. So today's conversation it's a lot, y'all. I'm gonna be here for a minute. It's a lot to talk about. But today's conversation is about that morality. And it's about pro-life and pro-choice, right? Pro-life and pro-choice are terms that are shared with the world about abortions. But I want to extend that conversation a little bit about pro-life and pro-choice, especially when it comes to people who consider themselves to have morals, who consider themselves to be Christian. And let me just make this little pocket note. D1 was was on the panel, and a lot of people in the comments were saying that, he should be on the panel. He was pretty much out of his lead. But I appreciated the fact that he was someone who was on the panel that wasn't so political, that didn't, have all the things together, because most of us don't, never mind. I don't know. A lot of people may not spend a lot of time researching and going through the politics. We might look at these sound bits and take it for what it is. I have to admit that I was taking in some sound bites. I didn't really care too much, but I heard sound bites and I just thought it to be true. One being for both Trump and Kamala, right? And I would encourage anyone to watch this particular video. The first one I'm going to share the entire video, because I think this is important for us to understand that sometimes we're not right, and sometimes we are consuming information and we don't have all the facts, so we can't definitively just go out here and make decisions based off of lack of knowledge, because we could be destroyed by lack of knowledge. Now, for instance, I'm going to bring up one that I had that was exposed because someone communicated it on this podcast, was Kamala and how she was putting black men into jail. So I heard that narrative that she's putting black men into jail. Someone that comes from the Kamala campaign was on this panel, and she shared a little bit more story about what really was going on there, how many people were in jail, how many were black. And even though it was still like words, I'm wondering, where is the data? Where are we getting those exact numbers where when we spread something online and everyone believes it, but no one is really looking at the number, they just going off of emotions and feelings. Another fact that came out was about Trump and the actual crimes that he's committed and the and where those land, right? Another story, I have to admit that I took a sound bite and I just believed it. So here is what I want to challenge anyone who's on this channel to do is when you hear a sound bite or when you hear a statement online about politics, about anyone, right? What is your vetting process to know that that is absolutely true? Then once you figure out it's absolutely true, is there a perspective that you can take to understand why this might be the case? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when we're talking about abortions, we have people in our life who are people on one side that's pro-life and people who are on pro-choice. The summary that I'm getting is people are having abortions based off of convenience. They're just having these abortions and it's not really a lot of rape or incest that's causing people to or medical issues that's causing people to get divorced. Most of the people are just having the divorces out of convenience. Some people may even say that people are having abortions because they don't have the support system and they don't have the money and it's going to stop them in their career. I want to pause there for a second because for someone who who's a mom of 3 lovely children, I know that being a mother takes money. It takes a lot of responsibility, and I'm also happy that I have my children. But if I was to think about it from a perspective of someone who, let's talk about money and poverty, is bringing in a child who doesn't want the child, bringing them into this world, and people are saying, "Hey, have this child because pro-life," and then they have the child, and then for the rest of their life, they're depressed. Or they might have the child and didn't want the child, and they are so happy they made the decision. So there's two different lanes that we can take. But if you have the child and you don't have the support, this goes back to morality and the choices that we make. So when I think about pro-life and pro-choice, I don't separate those two. It should be pro-life and pro-choice, and I'm going to explain that in a few. When I think about pro-choice, I think about the Bible. I think about my relationship with God. I think about the choice that we who believe in the Bible, and a lot of Christians are, about this life. For those who are reading the Bible, God gave a choice, but there was also conditions. A lot of this has to do with you being a person who's going to choose life, right? My pro-choice is choosing life every day. But are there moments when we choose death? Sometimes we choose death with the decisions that we make. That if we do this, because there's a lot of conditions in the Bible. If you love me, you keep my commandments, right? If you follow this commandment, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. So you have the if. There's a choice for you to choose life or death. There is guidance to say, hey, keep choosing life. Because if you don't want to end up in a situation where you have to um if you don't want to be in a situation where you have to decide whether or not you keep this child's life or not, you might want to start choosing life. But we're thinking about it, and this takes a lot of moral groundwork, right? We're talking about a community that may have been brought up just being told, don't have sex before marriage, but not given practical advice or making communities to really cultivate these children to understand what happens when you just have sex with any man and what that leads to when you don't have a moral ground to work with, that you're making these decisions out here that's causing death not only to you and what's going on in your body, but to the person that doesn't live or to the people around you and how they're impacted by your choices, right? So when we go back to those two greatest commandments, if we're loving God, it requires keeping the commandments of loving yourself, loving your neighbor as yourself. It seems simple, but I think it's also complex because it involves all of us making decisions to choose life, right? But here's the thing about the choices in the Bible is we don't recognize it when we murder with our tongue. A lot of this happens when we're talking about politics or we disagree with someone and we don't like what they say. we murder them with our tongue. There's life and death in our tongue. And the reason why I'm bringing that, the tongue is such a small part of our body, but it can do so much damages. You know why? Because people are going back and forth, and people are hurt, and people are making decisions to even abort a child because of what a man says or does not say. Or they're decided to do this because of the way that they're being treated, because the environment is not cultivated for them to feel safe and bring a child into it. So that has a lot to do with us making choices, not only with our tongues, but with our decision making, and with us choosing to be that person to help, right? If we were bringing in a child to a community where people were actually supporting them after they said pro-life, would that make a difference? We're gonna go through a few clips because I just got so passionate, y'all. And I'm already talking. I'm already talking. I'm talking. I'm already talking because I didn't want to forget any of my thoughts. I was just like, wow. Usually I'll have all these thoughts, I'll write them out, and I never did a video, so I do it now. For some reason, you feel inspired. So, life and death being in the power of the tongue is one of my favorites because that's what I'm practicing. I want to practice the fact that I don't think that I'm always speaking life to myself or to people around me or even the thoughts that are in my head. But there's a scripture that comes up when I think about just how important it is for us to realize that that's where life and death starts, is with our tongue. Because we it's easy for us to see that it's wrong to murder someone. It's easy for us to see that it's wrong to abort a baby, but it's not easy for us to see that the way that we speak and the power of words have just as powerful as an impact, because it leads to people wanting to do certain things. Now, I want to bring out some scriptures for those who are, like, interested in scriptures. The life and death and the power of the tongue is in Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. So if you love life, there's going to be fruits that come from it. If you love death, that's going to be a type of fruit that comes from it. And so this is what we don't realize, is that it's not about people being in control of our decisions. It's us realizing that we have self-control that we have to activate, and we are the individual that has to choose life, not because of a religion, honestly, but because you don't want to be in a predicament where you're messing up anything inside your body, or messing up people's lives through the decision that you make, or that we're even putting ourselves in the position to do these things that are harmful, right? There's a scripture, and I don't know where it is, but I'm going to describe it for anyone who knows it. Let me know. But there's a scripture in the Bible, and it talks about a man lusted after a woman. And it pretty much changes the thought process, being, don't commit adultery. And then Jesus comes and say, even if you look at a woman in your own heart, you committed the sin, right? And I thought about the scripture when I was thinking about this storyline that I'm trying to promote, of pro-life and pro-choice being together. Is that seems like it's very absurd to say, like, take out your eyes if you're lusting, look at your woman. But the powerfulness of it is that you're just looking, and the fact that you're looking is causing damage. I compare that to the same understanding that the way that we're talking to one another is causing damage, but we're skipping over that. And we're not realizing that that's pretty much the foundation of how we created a community that puts us in a position where people are choosing death, not only with how they decide to deal with a baby, but just in their everyday decision, because for some reason something has been blinding us to realize that life in the fruits of making good decisions just doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with anything. That we can really stop looking at a person's morals and say it doesn't matter, money matters more. That's interesting to me. Is it interesting to y'all that money matters more than morals? Like, that should be the foundation, because the money won't really grow if there isn't morals on how you deal with it. If there isn't stewardship, if there is respect for persons, if there's respect for persons, then the money's going to go in places where we will see a lot of poverty. We will see people saying, I'm not going to bring this baby in because of poverty. Let me just start watching the videos, because if I don't, we're not going to get there. We're not going to get there. So this first video is about the panel on Hardly Initiated. and they are discussing the question about abortion. Now, again, go back to the beginning of this video because this was the inspiration. I'm not trying to like make this too long because I got a lot of videos I got to go through, y'all. But the conversation is about morality, and I think that we're missing the point. And again, I am not a political genius. I'm not even. I do my best to live on this earth and navigate this earth. But I think it really does take all of us realizing how important it is for us to consider one another, the way that we talk, even consider how we talk into ourselves, because it starts at home. So it's not like we're always going to be perfect. But we actually have a commandment for those who believe in the Bible, for those who believe in trying to be our best, that be ye therefore perfect. Now, perfect in some people's definition might mean you do everything right, or it could be something else about perfecting what we can in our relationship with God and using that as our guide instead of putting so much emphasis on human beings who both have something wrong. If we're talking about which candidate has better morals, I don't know how we all are making that decision. I don't maybe I'm looking at two different candidates, but if all of the gossip and all the news is true, everyone on this earth probably has a morality issue. Oh yeah, this is the other story I wanted to share. This was important to me because I think this is one of the stories that make me so interested in why I have such an interest in the Bible. But before I watch this video, y'all, just real quick, because I got a lot of thoughts. I want you guys to do this. This is the assignment. As you are listening to the content, I want you to identify any triggers. And I also want you to play this game called role reversal, where you're trying to imagine why a person may get to a thought that you completely disagree with. That's the assignment. Okay. I don't want to forget that. But before I go into this first video, the reason why the scriptures are so interesting to me and how we, as people who believe in the Bible, respond to it is so interesting to me is if we are talking about someone else having control of our decision making, so the government makes the decisions for you. When do we activate true people truly coming to God through the care to other people who claim they are of God? What I mean by that is there are people in the Bible who made decisions that were off. King David being one of them. I don't know if y'all know this, but King David killed a man after having sex with his wife, which is literally not moral. It's not of God. But you all know something that's so interesting? He repented and the baby died. And God still considered him his son. But you want to know what's going on that I just tapped into is that I used to have a heavy focus on like how is God still cool with that? He did things that was against his word. How is he cool with that? One, he had a heart of repentance. The other thing is he still had fruits of his decisions. Like the decision to choose death, he saw what that looked like. He saw what that fruit looked like. So it's not as if he got away with it. He still had love and mercy, but he also had the fruit of it. Now, there's another story that I brought up on another video that I did about Tamar and how she was what happened to her situation. Look it up online. We got Google. I know there's certain words that you can't say on YouTube, but she was taken advantage of. And what happened to that person when he didn't have repentance? So the point here is everyone and who reads the Bible have to understand what God character is like, how did he respond to these things, and also realize that God was pro-choice, but he also shared what that means. He had David had the choice not to take that woman. He had the choice not to kill that man. He also had the choice to repent, and he also had the choice to turn his life around and make choices that was life. So everyone on this earth have the option for pro-choice. And why is pro-choice so important? If I'm in a relationship and someone is forcing me to do things, one, is not true love. If we're saying if I was forced to do something, is that authentic? Is it true? It could fumble and crumble because it's not authentic. What happens is we live in this world and we start to make these choices, and then we start to see ourselves, and then we choose to get closer or want to know or have a relationship with God, and that's a desire of ours. Then we can really see ourselves, and then there's an opportunity for us to change and shift those choices that are pro-death to pro-life. But the idea here is that God gave us the opportunity to choose life and to choose him. It was not a forced thing. So I'm not saying this with so much passion because I want to have people vote one way or the other. I want just people to think and use your head and your mind and stop fighting and arguing. Look at actually solution oriented situations. One thing I try to play around with is the idea of what happens if Kamala and Trump worked as a team. What happened if there was something that was some things that were wrong about his policy and some things that were wrong about her policy, and they met in the middle ground? They actually have these middle ground episodes where they're trying to talk things out. I love those episodes. It's so cool. Check them out. But what if they came to the middle ground as it relates to actually running the world? Like I said, I believe that a husband and wife who truly love each other, like, and have morals, some type of morals, should be leading these type of events in America. That way, one, we get rid of the gender war. We look at something that's team oriented. We look at people working together, and then it cultivates and inspires a reality of people wanting to contribute to this community, whether they're married or not, right? Because we also see situations where if we're talking about, there's so much to talk about. I'm not gonna get to this video, y'all. If I would stop talking, let's watch this video. I'm ready. Y'all ready? Let's watch the first one.
Taking us into our final topic,
Right.
because
They
that
don't like
is
And-
that that is what we about to actually go ahead.
And Ashley, how you looking on
and,
time, Ashley?
I got 7 minutes.
Oh no! All right, Ashley. Well, we're gonna start here with you.
See,
Okay.
they're not gonna love you like
Okay.
we love you, Ashley.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Ashley literally is.
I'll give you 13.
Thank
Excellent,
you.
excellent.
Thank
so, guys,
you.
I'm gonna go ahead and close out this poll real quick. Do men have an issue with a women president? We got absolutely and no, this is false. So the people have spoken. We got over 1,500 votes, 3,500 people in the chat. No, this is false, and that's at 60%. I'm gonna go ahead and run through quite a few of these super chats. We got purpose over potential. That's what they always do. Tell you what they gonna do and do nothing. Just like Obama, they are puppets. Trump 2024, at least he does what he says he gonna do. We got Kay Ann. Shout out to Kay Ann, who's been a member and moderator for 16 months. That's like record breaking. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for your vote. There's pros and cons to each side, and a man cannot say which is more godly. Love and miss you. Shout out to Sharika Nicholson. First of all, how does a pastor align themselves with a person who condones abortion and homosexuality? As a Christian, I'm not going for Kamala, and her policies suck. And the last one I'm gonna read until we get to the rest. MTS 1686 says you will never be able to legislate morality.
And there we have it. Taking it into round 3, we probably only got 12 minutes from my sister, so I'm gonna get us into this conversation so we can get your perspective. And family, send your super chats in. All over 20 we'll read, and we'll bring you guys up for your perspective at the end of this conversation. We just had the conversation of abortion with the prophetess. Tiffany Montgomery came on here with Bev Tucker this past Wednesday. Very, very polarizing episode. They pissed a lot of people off and they made a lot of people happy. That's kind of happened when you talk. What happens when you talk politics? They made a statement about abortion that I think is very important for us to hear as we go into this. Delano, take us over into that statement.
In the Bible, there is a God named Moloch, lowercase g. Moloch is spoken about in the Old Testament, Old Covenant, and also in the New Testament, New Covenant. He's talked about in both covenants. Moloch was the god in the Bible that was assigned to kill your children as a sacrifice. Maybe you wanted more money, maybe you wanted love, maybe you wanted fame or fortune. You sacrificed this child. Well, you may say, well, Tiffany, I'm not doing it for this. Well, if you said, I can't afford to have this baby, and you had an abortion, you sacrificed it for the money. If you say my career is really taken off and I can't really use a baby, you have now sacrificed your child for fame, influence, and to be well known. You did the same thing that they did in the Bible. Nothing is different. With that being said, there was always a consequence to the action.
All right, let's pause it right there. This is important. Okay, this is very important because what essentially Tiffany is saying that most abortions are happening because people are selfishly just having casual sex, and they're just having using abortions as birth control. Whereas I'm hearing a lot of arguments where people say, no, 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 no. What if I'm raped? I don't want to have the baby of someone who rapes me. No, 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 no. What if it's between me and the life of my child? You can't take abortions away.
Also, it's my body, my choice.
It's my body, it's my choice. I actually pulled some studies just to get some context on this confirmation from this conversation. A 2004 study from Gudemacher, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Institute found that approximately 4% of women cited health concerns, either their own or the fetuses, as the primary reason for seeking an abortion. So it's about 4%. Wasn't a huge amount. And the CDC reported that in 2019, 0.2% of women obtaining abortion cited rape as the primary reason, and 0.3 cited incest. So it's interesting. A lot of these issues that's brought up is no really data to support that that's happening in large numbers. But what I want to talk about is just our abortions. Is it a healthcare issue with our women, or is it just a form of birth control now in our society? And I'll start here with you, Ashley, since I know you have limited time.
Well, we started this conversation saying that morals weren't going to be a determining factor, but often when we then enter the conversation of abortion, it's the first thing that people lead with. So I like to be consistent. I am a proponent for pro-choice, that it is a woman's right to choose, and that no person should have any say over any person's body, not a man's body and not a woman's body. And that's it is a form of access to care. And we have seen since Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2020 that the amount of miscarriages that have led to women not being able to have children in the future because of the 1 in 30 women live in a state with an abortion ban. It is a form of healthcare. It is a form of that it needs to be accessible to people. So I am fundamentally in support of a woman's right to choose, and you make your personal choice what is right for you. We also know the story of Amber Thurman, that she was beginning to have a miscarriage, and Amber, a Black woman from Georgia, is no longer with us because she had to travel across state lines. She couldn't get access to care. It's also putting people, physicians, in this predicament when their patients come in to seek health care, to see what's happening to them. They are in a state like Texas at risk of facing criminal prosecution for potentially offering care. So a lot of the consequences that people have warned about would happen if Roe has been overturned, we are seeing them come to life. Melanie is right. Obama said that he was going to codify Roe. We understand you need to have a 60 vote threshold. And it is very hard to codify Roe when that was still the law of the land. Many people are disappointed that he didn't do that. But the case of the matter is that Donald Trump overturned Roe. And to D1's point, is he is talking out of two sides of his mouth on this issue. He knows that it is extremely polarizing for women. White women historically have voted more Republican leaning. But this election, we are seeing this massive gender gap, because to have a constitutional right taken away from you is gutting. And so we'll see tomorrow, but we do believe that a lot of women are leaning towards Harris, independent Republican women, because of the decision of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And that is also why we know in 2020, when so many Republicans predicted a red wave would come, it didn't happen because people were so frustrated. So I think it should be your own personal decision with you, your partner, and your doctor. And no one on this call should really have any say of what I do in my personal life.
Wow.
There you have it.
Yeah, I just dropped a poll, guys, because I'm very curious what you guys think. Should abortion access be banned? Yes, no, undecided.
Anybody got anything to follow up here? I know this is a touchy subject here, and this is the quietest it's been this whole time. What we got?
Yeah, I want to jump in. So the thing about abortion, like the question you just put up, Ryan, I mean, I don't think it should be banned, but I don't think it should be just you can have abortion up until the point of birth. I'm from Virginia originally. When I left, Ralph Northam just became the governor in 2018. And he was on tape talking about, well, after the baby's born, we're going to put the fetus aside and see what we're going to do with it. They're talking about abortion up until the point of birth, up until 9 months. I agree with Trump when I say the 3 exceptions: rape, life of the mother, incest. I believe in that. There should also be like maybe a 10-week limit, maybe 10 to 15 week. I'm not an extremist person. Getting rid of Roe v. Wade was good because it was no longer a federal government type thing. It's an individual state. So if you're living in California and you want to have an abortion up until 9 months and y'all want to vote for it, go ahead. You have even more access to the so-called healthcare that you like. And then there's no more back and forth about, okay, the federal government says this. Nope, your state, you decide you have better control over abortion. Furthermore, what is the baby inside of you? Is it a baby or not? We can talk about my body, my choice. Well, the baby is a human being as well. Baby has a body. Furthermore, any Christian advocating for abortion just willy-nilly, and it's not a healthcare issue. They cited the stats earlier. What, 1%, less than 1% for the 3 exceptions? It's usually elective. I can't afford it. I don't want to have it. I already got too many. It's like that. If you're a Christian, which I'm not, but if you are and you support that, I don't see how it makes any sense. I just don't get it. And part of the reason, you know what, D1, part of the reason why I'm not Christian is because of stuff like that, the hypocritical nature of church right now. But I don't want to go too deep into that, so I digress.
Can I just say one thing before I have to jump? And I'm sorry I can't stay on the full time. I just want to point out the conversation about the Virginia governor. Those circumstances are what we call palliative care. It's when the baby has a condition. There are instances where the woman knows that the baby is not going to survive out of utero, and so they do palliative care, or they have to abort the fetus at a later stage. Those are the most extreme, heartbreaking cases. I did hear that clip. It was like what he said and what is actually what happens were inconsistent. It was like a bad political flub, but no one is advocating for a baby to be a day before they are birthed and for an abortion. It is literally for the care of the mother, or honestly, for the care of the baby who will not survive out of utero, and they don't want the individual to suffer. So I do think like sometimes it's important. I know this is a heated topic, but it is also about respecting the science that exists as well in these instances. So.
Well, I mean, I agree with you as far as the 3 instances, rape, life of the mother, incest. I agree with that. But at the same time, we got some really extreme people that say up until the point of birth. Not everyone, but that is a thing. And that's the problem, is people that are just regular, normal people who don't believe in the crazy extremes and the extremists. You know what? Okay, let your state decide. If you're living in California and you want to be an extremist and the majority of neighbors want the same thing, then go ahead and have it. Problem solved.
Ashley, what I want to do is, I know you got to get out of here, so I want to first off thank you
absolutely
for coming on here and having this conversation with us.
Glad we got you today.
And then I want to just roll out the red carpet to let you know you're always welcome back, because these are important conversations. Obviously, we're not going to be able to, in an hour and 15 minutes, change the world. But there probably was a couple people listening that you were able to give a bit of understanding to, which is the purpose of this conversation. So thank you very much. And you're always welcome to come back to Harlem Initiate. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Absolutely.
Right.
What I want to do now, my sister Melanie here, I want to make sure I get Melanie's perspective on this conversation
and
here, especially as a woman.
Correct. Then I want to address what ABL has to say to D1 regarding the morality aspect of being a Christian.
That's a very important conversation. Melanie, go ahead.
Melanie,
So she brought up Amber Thurman. Amber Thurman didn't die because she couldn't get an abortion. She actually died from the side effects of taking the abortion pill. And she did not get the correct hospital care when she did not expel her fetus completely. Okay. And so then they had to do a DNC, but then she contracted sepsis, and that is how she died. She did not die because she had a life-threatening illness or something was wrong with the child. She wanted an abortion. The abortion pill, the side effects of it, and how the FDA have loosened the the guidelines, the restrictions on this abortion medicine, and that's how she died. Actually, if you go into all the cases that they bring up, almost all of them, there's some complication from the abortion, not the actual pregnancy. that is causing that. There are some cases like that, but the ones that you talk about all the time, they automatically say that, and it's just not true. So I think a lot of people just take the top headline and say, oh, she couldn't get an abortion, so that's why she died. No, she died because of her abortion.
That's a very dangerous procedure. An abortion, whether it be the pill or the traditional way, where they just yank the fetus out. If you guys know how an abortion works, they literally take the fetus out like a pair of pliers and just rip it out. Now, of course, this is going to damage the woman's body, regardless, whether it's the pill or the traditional abortion. So it's a very dangerous thing to do to yourself.
Melanie, as a woman, are you open to, do you think, and back to the question that we had up here, do you feel like abortion should be banned? Or do you feel like, there should be some level or option to a woman being able to have an abortion?
Well, this is really personal for me because my mother was raped at 14, and that's how I have my oldest sister. She was raped by knife point, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I can bring that word. I don't know. I don't want it to hurt your
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hopefully,
This is your testimony.
So I'm actually a person who grew up like knowing this story, what happened. My mother went on to achieve and everything like that, and she could not get one at the time. She actually tried to do it herself. She was kicked out of her home, and then she was taken in by nuns into a home. That's what they would find, a home a home of confinement. Nuns would take in young girls who were kicked out because it didn't matter if you were violated or not. The fact that you were pregnant, you were gone. And so I have a complicated history with that. For me, I do believe it needs to go to the states. I do believe there need to be exceptions. This is my issue, though. Most are using it as birth control. They don't really want to use the birth control. I would say they see it as the easy out. Like, it doesn't matter. I can just, if something happened, I can easily get birth control and it won't be a problem. And you see this. I even did a video a while back where actually probably 2 years ago, where this rapper, she was outside of Planned Parenthood with her friends, half naked, twerking, talking about, this ninja nutting me, I'm going to kill this, thing. And she actually spells it abortion, like celebrating abortion. You hear, it's become a cultural thing and it's no big deal. And so for me, it is disgusting and how it's been, the access to it, what it has done. I do believe most states will end up voting for abortion so that women can have it. I think that's the right move to make. But again, the exceptions are so small. You know what I mean? They're so small. In any case they're bringing up, they're not really valid. So it's an issue that I just think people, killing a child is just seen as no big deal. They don't really care about it at all. And it's so preventable. It's just, I don't know.
Melanie, let me ask some stats for you, because personally, it's I think it probably hit our community the hardest as well, because when you look at the stats, I found something here that said the CDC reported in 2021 that Black women accounted for 41.5% of abortions in the U.S. If you use that number consistently along the just the years, just to try to get an estimate of how many babies that is since we were allowed to have abortions, you could just estimate that, we've aborted probably about 25 million Black babies. And, that's, I'm sure has an impact. And, I have a similar story. My mom, actually, I'm not sure if you hear, Ma, I love you if you are. Probably gonna get a little personal here, but I actually said it before, but she actually recently admitted to me, probably 3 months ago. I never knew this, but my mom told me that she actually was also assaulted. And here I am the result. So when...
All right, that's all I'm going to play from here, because I have a few other videos that I wanted to share with you guys. But I want to take this moment in time to just put some questions out there, because as I was watching this, as I was watching other content I'm going to share with you, I definitely have put myself in a position to see stories on both ends as it relates to morals in this topic of abortion. I think when we talk about politics and all the other things, I think I have to admit, I am not the person to come to about politics, about history, about anything. I am the person to come to is like, how do we get creative with trying to find solution-based solutions, goals or whatever? How do we get creative with love, and how do we shift our negative thinking, or make our negative thinking work for the good for ourselves and all? Because when I think about a world with so much data and so much intelligence, and a world that cannot use that same intelligence and wisdom to really try to work together, we're all fools. We're all fools, because it seems like it's a very simple thing to do, but instead we prioritize debating and realizing that, we prioritize debating and arguing and looking at someone else's for the wrong, versus that introspective perspective, that inner work that we can do, the mindfulness and consciousness that we can have, and realizing that we might get a lot of data, and the data might say one story, but for some reason, maybe the people in your community is all you see. You're not seeing beyond that, but that's really all you have. And how do we tap into, and this is why, again, I have to say I like content, is because you get to hear other stories instead of being in your own little box. It's not just your world. And maybe there's another world where we have people who actually do support you after you decide to keep a baby, after you decided to make a decision that was to choose death, and before you made a baby. How do we make decisions that choose death? When you get raped or someone abuses you in incest, those people who did that, they chose death, and you were the person that they chose to sin against, right? They hurt you and they harm you. So a lot of these decisions are based off of not only how we treat our own body, but how that impacts the next person. So when we decide to take away someone's life because of the bad decision that we make, it's because we made the bad decision in the first place. And it also could be the fact that we're coming from environments and communities and leadership that didn't know what they were doing. This is the interesting conversation, I think, about when people say, the world is going, the generation is, crazy. They're doing whatever they want. That's not how it was back in my day. I always have this question about, well, what if back in the day was so good and everybody had it all together, in what world do we go astray from there? We have to admit that there was probably something that we weren't doing right, because if it was perfect and it all is, this is just a theory. Someone let me know in the comments. Is it possible for us to live? Well, I just answered my own question. I'm thinking about the story that we have in the Bible. Is it possible for us to live in such a perfect world and still mess it up? If we think about Adam and Eve, we think about the choice, choose life or death. It's really about everyone making that individual choice, because we do have the option to be in an environment like Adam and Eve have, but it's this idea of more, or what we can get outside of just choosing life. Now, here's some questions for you all to think about before we go into the next video. What do you think will help you listen more openly to someone who has views that's opposing to you? I just want you all to really think about the questions, and I'm thinking about them as well, because I went through this journey. This is why I'm sharing it with you all, is that I'm a product of being able to listen to two different sides of the story and not lead so much with my anger and my triggers, because it's practice. And this is why I want y'all to join me with practicing, okay? But have that question for yourself. What would you need in return to feel respected? If you're trying to openly listen to someone, because most of the time when I hear this debate, and this is a pretty, so far, I haven't even got to the end of this video, which is why I stopped here. I'm not sure what happens after here. I got so passionate. I was like, I got to do a video and these other clips. So I didn't get to the other videos, but I was reading in the comments, and of course they pulled out that D1 had to address this conversation about morality and being a Christian. And that's why I'm inserting myself into the chat, is because not even a title of Christianity, but just a title of like, caring about the decisions that we make. I don't even know if we always have to be kumbaya, but if we had some type of moral system, would that be the fruit? Because we think about the times of old, the fruit should be that they were so good at making decisions that we should have this good fruit. But the truth is, since the beginning, if we do believe in that beginning story, if we're taking even the Bible as inspiration or guidance, that people have been making decisions since the beginning of the time without good fruit. And the big question is, will we ever change from that? What are we here to practice and cultivate being better people so that we will get so tired and sick of sin and hurting one another that is non-existent? Like, when will we get tired of treating one another? When we talk about murder of a baby, is decisions, it's murder with our mouths and tongues again. And then one other question I wanted to just call out is, what do you think? Why do you think there's so much division on issues related to life and choice? Like, why do you think that the division occur? I think this is a pretty simple question for those who are really strong in their stance. But like, if you start to just look at it from a holistic view and look at the bigger picture, what is the disconnect? And I love here what's shared in the story from the woman in the corner is, one, she's a product of what happens if someone decided to choose life, and she's here. And another person on the same screen said the same thing, that despite things working for evil, everything worked out for good for them, and they're alive. And so those choices are taken away. But I think what's also interesting here is she mentioned that her mom went to a place where nuns were helping. And that's one of the areas where I think, what if we work together on these policies and understood the bigger picture on what we actually need as far as the community goes, right? If there were community groups, so we have community groups that help you get an abortion, but do we have community groups that help you if they want you to choose pro-life and help you with the baby? Do we have those who are teaching and educating, like how to be a mom and what to do when you're stressed out? What do you do when the baby father leaves? How do we have communities to help those fathers feel like they need to stay, even if they don't work out with the mother? How do they practice self-control and discipline for the choices that they also made? It's basically, how do we react to the bad choices that we make to turn them into life? So when I say pro-life, pro-choice, but choose life, sometimes we choose death. But how do we turn those death choices around? And that's the resurrection to me. It's bringing something that's dead, a death decision, and bringing life to it based off of making those life choices and looking at those conditions in the Bible, that if you do these, or if you're this type, this is what happens. Start reading through the Proverbs, and it'll give you really a blueprint on those conditions. But yeah, let's go to this next video. So this next video is from a YouTube Instagram page. And it's a woman who's discussing her experience with abortion. So she's telling her testimony and her story. And she also, well, let's just watch it together because I'm gonna start talking again, y'all, because I love to talk. I'm gonna start talking again. So 1 second, I'm gonna put this video up for us and we're gonna watch it together. Oops, no. Okay.
Because this, I did not want to talk about this, but the Holy Spirit has been telling me to talk about this for weeks, and delayed obedience is disobedience. So I'm going to try to get through this without crying. I would like to talk about abortion because this seems to be the abortion election. It seems to be Camilla's main and only concern. It's just very hard hearing this from a woman who has no children of her own, fighting for the rights for women to take the lives of their own children. And I'm coming from a place of experience. I've had 2 abortions. And of course, I haven't really talked about it in detail because I've been ashamed, rightfully so. No one talks about how you feel after you have an abortion. No one talks about the pain, the shame, the guilt, and the trauma that you carry with you for your entire life after having an abortion. And I was looking up the statistics to find out that there's close to 2,500 abortions a day. Almost 100,000 abortions a month. And only 5% of those yearly abortions are accounted for rape. So the other 95% of those abortions is pure convenience. It's selfish. It's demonic. When you lay on that table and you shed that blood, you come into a covenant with a demon named Moloch. Every woman that I have ever known that has a bit of a conscience, a bit of a soul, highly regrets having an abortion. Majority of those women fall into a depression, fall into doing things to cope with the pain and the shame and the guilt. It creates a hatred towards men and ourselves. And it's really a downward spiral. It wasn't until recently, it's been over 10 years for me, that I actually have been able to forgive myself. And the only way I was able to do that was through deep, deep repentance. Deep repentance. Because once I understood the magnitude of what I did years later through research of understanding the whole reason why Planned Parenthood was even created by Margaret Sanger was to eradicate the Black race. It was an attack on Black women. She hated Black people. We were targeted when she created Planned Parenthood. So that's why it's beyond me, where you have this woman who has no children of her own. You have artists like Beyonce and Cardi B and Sexy Red fighting for the rights for us. The same people who were targeted are the same people who are fighting for the right to continue to callously take the lives of children. I cannot see myself as a person who loves Jesus Christ voting for someone whose core principle and someone who stands in front of a church congregation pretending to love Jesus Christ, but at the same time, only motive is the rights for women to take the lives of children. Where was this my body, my choice when it was time to take that, you know what I'm saying? That shot. We didn't have no choice then. You threatened our jobs. You didn't allow us to enter places, facilities. You didn't allow us to even go to church. Where was the my body, my choice then? But oh yes, we want to give you your body, your choice, and the rights for you to. You're a child. I can't sit in silence anymore about this topic. I thank God for his grace and his mercy for allowing me to have a child, knowing what I did. And I could have still had a good life had I kept my children. Because I believe that God will not give us nothing that we cannot handle. When I had those abortions, I had it out of convenience. I was being selfish because I believed the lies of the enemy that I would not have a good life. My life would be harder for me and I wouldn't be able to accomplish my goals if I had a child and I was young, and how children would hold me back. They were all lies. that I believed. And I that's the only regret I have in this life. The only regret. And most women who have an abortion feel the same way, especially if you love God.
All right, so that was a very interesting video, and I when I seen this video, it made me think about the decisions that we make again. I don't think I'm going to get away from these decisions, but I want to share a scripture that comes up that I think will help me communicate what I want to say next. So the scripture is James 1:14-15. It says, "But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death." Again, going back to life and death is in the power of the tongue. Choose ye this day life or death, based off of whether or not we choose to love. The thing about loving God is it's about loving one another. Like, we are all in this together, and it's as if we're in this trial period, trying to figure it all out, trying to correct our wrongs, seeing how all things work together for the good, even these bad decisions that we make. But what I think is very interesting and a point of conversation is the decision, the role that the government plays in saying you can or cannot do this for your body and for all other things. That this is what I think my conversation is centered around. It's not centered around the fact that people should abort babies or people should have the decision to abort babies. It's that we have to extend beyond this conversation of pro-life and pro-choice. The conversation should be, why do we think that we don't have self-accountability? Why do we think that because someone puts it out there that you can choose death, that you have to choose death? I think that's interesting. We're putting a lot of power in making it so that we control the decisions of people. As if people are still out here killing, people are still out here destroying each other, people are still out here doing things that harm life for themselves and other people. So life is about the baby. But you know what I was thinking about the other day? Donald Trump and Kamala Harris used to be little babies. They used to be little babies, and someone said, "Oh, you little cute little babies, you're so cute." And they grew up and they became adults. And now there are adults who people hate and on one side or the other, and people say mean things to them about their lives. But they once was a baby also who wasn't aborted, who came into this world, whose parents valued life. And even though people hate their lives now, right? Imagine a mother who doesn't ever want to have children. She's forced to have this child, and then she abuses the child, which is actually, let me just go ahead and share this one little clip before our last one. So this on the screen is, let me just, because this is going to go onto the, what am I sharing? Yeah, stop sharing. Let me share this clip. And this is from a person who I don't believe this person is religious in any nature. They actually talk about a lot of content about how religion really screws people up. Conversation that we can have on another day. But this one is a post that he shared. And it says, "This is real. This is real. Life post by an anti-abortion activist. You can't make this stuff up." So the person says, "I talked a mom out of abortion in February. Her baby is 6 months old now and was just removed from her family's custody by DCS. Unfortunately, it was probably a justified removal. But this family put me down as next preferred placement for the baby. Dude, me? No, 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 no. I do way too much for this work already. A 6-month-old will break me, destroy my marriage and physical health. I just can't." Yo. So much comes out of this. So much comes out of this. And if we have, you know what's so interesting, because I think sometimes when I share a viewpoint and it is trying my best to think on the good or be positive, sometimes the response is, you gotta, life has to kind of like, you gotta get out your bubble, or life isn't that way, or a lot of excuses to say that we can't try our best to do better. We just have to like fall into all of these bad decisions and sin and not try to help one another up. Honestly, we all are trying to do it by ourselves. Like sometimes I don't care about people because it's life myself, just the weight and heaviness of life itself, trying to navigate through all of the decisions that's being made for you, the choices that's being made for you, that makes it difficult for you to live life more abundantly, because we aren't tapping into the fact that we all have choices that make it easier for us all, but instead we're all about our own wins and our own gains. But this sacrifice of taking a little bit for myself so that I can give to the ultimate, can contribute to the world, it works itself out. But I don't think we have enough faith in believing that it's going to be that way, because we have so many people who are slaves to sin, right? There's a scripture about being a slave to sin, and it's so interesting because we talk about being a slave for our 9 to 5, or being a slave in this world, in one way or the other, but we don't realize how we become slaves to sin. And what would it be like if we were slaves to righteousness? Like all we wanted to do was contribute to the good. Is there a better impact? And this is a theory. I'm not trying to move one way or the other. I'm just expressing my thoughts on the internet like other people do. But I think that is interesting. If our goal is to create a society where we all feel respected and heard, like what are some of the compromises or the new approaches that we can make, instead of feeling like another argument or another debate is going to lead us there? We can't scream and force people onto our side. It just doesn't work that way. We have to learn how to be mindful in our conversation, hear both sides, and even look at the bigger picture, because people aren't making up these things just because they are pure evil people. And people don't automatically come into this world they're good and they got all their things together. Like these things are supposed to work together. We're supposed to be figuring out for the person who has a heart that's so dark and so heavy, and the person that has a heart that's light and hasn't been jaded by this world and has a great upbringing, is supposed to work together. That person's supposed to realize that there is something out there in this world where it's not helping us, and that person is supposed to see the light and supposed to be motivated and moved by it. Are we just saying that people are just truly evil because we all came into this world? But some of us know, like when they were mentioning through some of these two videos, like who that God is, I don't know who that person is. Some people just have knowledge and understanding of things, and I'm just like, where do y'all get this from? Where do y'all get all of these? And even when we talk about the facts and the research and the history, everyone has a different perspective on what that is. But you know what doesn't really change for me? If I made this simple for myself and I said, okay, I don't know the history, I don't know the data, I don't even know everyone's personal story, I don't even know how God is experiencing with everybody, I don't even know how I got here, besides the fact that my parents did what they needed to do. Thank you for that experience. But before that, how do we get to this place where we are in this world and we're seemingly are set up for failure, even in a good environment? It goes back to like the choices, like they had choices to make. But honestly, a question would be like, why didn't they feel comfortable with that one rule to eat from that one tree, or to not eat from that one tree? One rule. Now we got several rules, because it's one choice. So we talk about, when people say one vote matters, I think about one choice matters. Okay, one choice for you to choose life, to continue to choose life each and every day. I know I sound preachy, but I can't help it. That's why I'm here. Okay, I'm not preachy. I'm passionate about this. For one, I would love to see myself activate on that level, and I would love to see myself try my best. And with the flaws that I have and the mistakes that I've had, I think that's a cooler way to exist in this world. Like no one is out here doing it. We have a few leaders in history that try to give us the brighter side of looking at things, and they get how they get. But isn't it interesting that we want to choose death in our decisions so often? that we want to tear each other down so often. Like, that's old news now. Like, why don't we have all these challenges online? We have all these intelligent people online. Let's do something that actually is worth it. Let's all try our best to see, like, what would it look like if we were to like make good look so good. Which, oh yeah, that's what I wrote with my notes, y'all, because she mentioned that she was talking Cardi B and Sexy Red. I think it's so interesting that when we do think about the systems in place and people say, like, you know, when we talk about these stats and it's separated by color and things like that, that all seems a little it seems a little suspect that we even separate ourselves like this. But when I think about representation, which is why some people are voting one way or the other, some people feel represented by Trump because they feel empowered and safe with someone who looks like a white man. Some people are empowered by Kamala because they've never seen it before and they feel safe by a woman who looks like she does. Okay, I don't think that we realize that color and representation matters to a certain degree, because when we think about a Cardi B or Sexy Red and what they promote, we don't see a lot of these underground artists who have like very positive songs being on the same pedestal as someone who looks like them and promotes what they promote. Now, this is not to judge one way or the other, because again, King David messed up, right? So we got to keep that in our framework, that if, especially if you believe in God, even pointing out people like this to a certain degree is like, but can God change them? Right? Do you believe that God can change? Do you believe that God is, that's another question. If you are a Christian, this is only for people who believe that they are Christian or believe in the Bible. Do you believe that God is limited and he cannot change a person that you think is just unlovable or unforgivable? Do you just think he just, God just so limited, bro? He cannot do that. Or does it have something to do with this collective experience that we're supposed to have and following those commandments of loving our neighbors as ourselves? Like, what is it, instead of judging a person like a Cardi B or Sexy Red, what does it look like to love them? I mean, I don't even know the answer to that, but I would love for us to imagine, what does it look like in your own life to love someone that may be hard to love? And even in cases, there are going to be people where you just have to separate yourself. The scriptures will tell you about who to separate yourself from. But I think even in that separation, there is love, because let's say if we kept separating ourselves in a mindful way from people who only wanted to choose evil, there's a sense of belongingness. And so they might want to belong to something that actually edifies and have good fruit. But instead, as a people and through our media and our marketing, what we edify is what we get. When I think about the marketing industry and advertising, if people actually wanted to buy goodness, if people wanted to be well, if people wanted to love their neighbors as themselves, and that's what they promoted, that's what they would have to give us, and that's what we would have to buy into. But we buy into fear, we buy into respect of persons, we buy into putting our trust in man, and we buy into money being our God instead of morality being our God. And so since that's the case, that's what's being sold to us. We keep biting and chewing it. So what if we try something different? Maybe this has been the behavior for a long time. And I know I'm just talking. I don't even think talking about this is really going to change you right now listening. And who I feel like somebody on the side is just I want somebody to come on this channel who has all the hate in their heart and to just have a little bit of an assignment to say, I want a role reversal. I want to look at something from a different lens. I want to look at something from a holistic view. I want to know why I'm so angry. That's all I want. Just one person. Because I don't think the point of having these conversations is that it's going to change in one day. But I think what's happening is that we're always getting content that's allowing us to consider and to revisit the behavior of being angry and evil to one another. Then we get complacent in that. It's uncomfortable to think on a good when you don't want to. It's uncomfortable to practice being mindful in a conversation when you hate that person. It's uncomfortable to disconnect yourself from people who don't serve you because you are familiar with that trauma. So I'm not saying that we all have to be kumbaya, but I am saying that we have to be intentional about the choices of life. I don't know. I feel good about that, y'all. I feel good about what I just said. Okay. Praise God. All right, so let's go to this last video and then we are done. I'm gonna miss you all because you all being myself in my room. I was one of those children who had fun entertaining herself. I used to have the teddy bears on my bed, and I used to be the teacher. I'm fine entertaining myself. But if you're one person that has made it to this far in a video, I usually do this at the end of the video. But if you've been here an hour, I would love for you to put a heart in the comments, a yellow heart in the comments, and like this video. And hopefully, if this makes it out after the election, that we think about this conversation being an extension of the conversation on morality, the extension of the conversation on the choice that we made and what it means to love someone and choose to love that one and to choose to be that way instead of it being feared into. Some people say there's a certain level of fear that we have to have. There's a reverence that we have to have, and it's out of this land. We don't have the fear of God, and so because of the lack of fear of God, people are just doing whatever they want to, and this is what's causing those choices. But I wonder if we truly were, and this is for people who left the church too, if we truly were what we thought the church should be, if we truly got rid of all of this pride that comes with it, or this control that we have to exert on people, with this lack of compassion, the lack of activating the fruit of the spirit, like just really put the fruit of the spirit, like look up the fruit of the experience on google.com, find the Bible, look in Galatians, look at what the fruits of the spirits are. If you were to just look at that alone, what does that look like for you? And how do you think it would change your interaction with people? Long suffering and patience? Bruh, kindness? Like, even people will use kindness and say, I'm kind, I'm not nice. But however you want to play with the words, kindness does require you to sacrifice a little bit of your pettiness. Kindness does require you to not take it personally. Like when we're taking everything so personally. And I think that's also a disconnect from us being able to realize that we all are going to fail one another at one point. But this act of forgiving over and over again, or the kindness that we allow for ourselves, is really for ourselves. Because what is it? I realized this when I was a young parent, that I wasn't fitting to be yelling all the time at my children. You wanna know why? Because it took a lot of energy. It zapped me out. And so my son the other day at that game night, it was a question that came out about like knowing your parents. He said, when mom is mad, she's quiet. Like I get quiet because one, I have to recharge. Right? I have to recharge. Taking care of other humans and trying to do your best to get care of other humans. It takes a lot of work. So are there going to be people out there who don't want to be mothers and might even destroy this? Just think about little baby Kamala and little baby Trump. They used to be babies. Do you know how when you see a baby, like, oh, he's so cute, that baby becomes an adult. So our investing in the way that our children think, the way that they communicate with one another, it's going to have an impact on who we see as leaders in the world. Our leaders should be able to have conversations together, talk about policies without tearing each other down. We should be able to clearly just focus on both moral and concrete solutions. This is what's confusing me. Like, why we can fight all day. We can make sure that our word is better than the other. We drop the bomb on them. Okay. But like, really, like, why is it so difficult for us to just listen? And I'm speaking to myself as well. But if we all contributed just a little bit and we sacrifice just a little bit of our pride and our ego and the things that, the last thing I want to say before this last video, because this is a long video that I'm going to share, is that we have this thing where we harm ourselves, and then there's this bucket of harming other people. If we could just get at least out of that bucket of harming other people, like we're going in the right direction. Like, just keep your hands to yourself. Did y'all not? I learned that in my public school education. Okay, I don't know a lot of things, but in my public education, they said keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to yourself. right? And then that way you'll be able to see that all the decisions that you're making is about you being a slave to sin, you choosing death over and over again, and maybe you'll get tired of it. I know I'm tired of some of the decisions I made. There's just things I just don't do anymore because I'm tired of the outcome of it. I'm tired of listening to some people doing the same thing over and over again. I'm tired. It's just shifted in behavior. But the last thing I want to say, because I keep saying the last thing, I got so much stuff to say, y'all. Ooh, is that we might not have the tools, we might not have the resources to shift out of these behaviors, but there's something called a desire and a passion. There is an experience that we can tap into. This world is, I know that what we see is a lot of like crazy stuff in the world, but sometimes, looking at a TikTok dance ain't that bad. Looking at something that makes you happy is not that bad, because then you got to just cultivate or put yourself in an environment where you're choosing something that's not as heavy as this election in the faith conversation. I know that. But I intentionally am is choosing, like, how do I wake up each day and get creative and look at people and see God in them, to see God's love for them has shifted so much on how I interact with people. Like, I'm excited to go to work. I like what I do. Okay. I don't really have any complaints in that area, but it's just increased because I like what I do. So I'm able to match and understand myself and do the things that I do. But also I'm like adding this other element, like, wow, I'm just so happy to see somebody's face. I'm so happy to see that you exist. Kamala and little Donald Trump, they used to be babies. Oh, look at the little baby. And I think about it from their perspective. It's like, oh, they just babies. They just big babies. A lot of us so-called adults are big babies. And we weren't nurtured enough. No one listened to our cries. And so we have to scream out. Maybe, whoever was our parent, they really didn't want us. They didn't even have the desire and love for us. And so we're like trying to navigate through life in a way that's messy because we don't have that guidance, that self-control. But once we realize and learn these things about ourselves, we can spend enough time and we can complain about the old, we can complain about the younger generation, we can make it blaming everyone else. But I think one of the most beneficial decisions is like, oh, what am I going to do in my own life to be exactly what I need? That's something that we hear this stuff in all the motivational speakings. We hear this in our public school education. But the most intelligent people, the seemingly intelligent people, haven't grasped that because the behavior is strengthened in something else. Okay, let's get this last video because okay, last video, and then I'm out because y'all, I love to talk. And I know I don't want to be a fool with many words. I really don't. So if I end up being a fool with many words and it has not been communicated, forgive me. I'm trying my best to figure it out on my own. I'm trying my best to tap into conversations where at least we start to hear something different. I believe in conversations for one, because you get a lot of conversations through therapy that really helps you understand why you are the way that you are. And words are powerful. They say sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Words are out here hurting people in this political landscape. Words hurt. That's why it's life and death. You punching somebody with your words. So if we do have these many words, make them count. Make them mindful. Okay. Let's look at this last video together. Now I chose this video because I think it leads me to that conversation about what if we work together? What if we try to find, we understand both sides of the story? And if we are going to be pro one way or pro the other, what does that mean for the other side? How do we come and support and love our neighbors as ourselves? So the scripture that I want to reference here is about Christ. And he talks about, when I needed food or when I was in prison, you weren't there. So when I think about the community who want pro-life and the people who make decisions to keep these babies, we also need to make room and consider that. And this is what I got from this video. I might not play the whole thing because I already just said my little piece, but I want y'all to watch it with me and see where the inspiration came from. Okay.
If we're talking about someone having a good
all
life,
of their life.
and I'll let you go with this. As a matter of fact, I've got to let you go. I've got like
Wait,
11,
okay.
12 people behind me.
Where this supposed to
But
start?
let me just say this as you go. But thank you, by the way, for coming on.
I'm a-
Sorry,
I was
one
like, you know,
second.
I-
Let's start from the beginning.
ability,
I was like, okay.
Shawan,
That's all.
and I've learned so much in these past few weeks, but I'm just confused about our responsibility as citizens of the country versus our responsibilities as Christian,
Mhm.
because we know that the world is not Christian. We know that the world is fallen, and we know that the Bible is true. So we are in a mess, but that's what the Bible teaches us, that the world is in a mess. So
Mhm.
how are we, so like I've heard, like, if you're Christian, you can't vote Democrat. Well, I don't necessarily consider myself a Democrat, but as a citizen of the world, I want to vote for the person who has the best interest of the majority of people in common, whether I agree with the spiritual parts or not, because it's not for me to judge that. I guess I'm
I hear what
just
you're saying.
confused.
There
Yeah.
is a dilemma where Christians should feel conflicted. This world is someplace I'm passing through. It's almost like me on vacation in France and me worrying about taxes in France or the cost of goods and services, things like that in France, when I'm only just passing through. Matter of fact, I'm leaving tomorrow. So why should I worry about what's happening in France? But another part is like, but there are people and I do care about them. How should I feel? Because I know as a citizen of heaven, but I'm just passing through here on earth. What should I even worry about it? And I get that. You don't have a duty to vote one way or the other. You don't have to go and vote. You don't have to do anything. You can just sit it out and just say, you know what, and just pray for the world. What I would say also, though, is that I think it would be wrong and irresponsible for someone to not vote. And by the way, when I say vote, doesn't mean you have to vote for all branches of government and all levels. You don't have to vote for the national offices. If you want to just vote for the city government parts, if you want to vote, just vote for your councilmen or aldermen or wherever place you're in. If you want to just vote for the sheriff or judges in your locale, that's fine also, and leave the national stuff alone. There's a reason why most local elections don't get as much turnout until it's a national election that corresponds with it, because folks are already in the booth. Whatever you feel compelled to, but you don't have to feel compelled as though you're voting for someone who is going to represent Christ. I think if we understood what our government is supposed to do, I think it would help us in regards to how we vote. We don't vote for someone to be the kind of person that we want to show to the world. In other words, we're not voting for a representative of Christ. That's us. We're not voting for someone to be the light of the world. That's us. We don't vote for someone to take the place of us, our pastor, and Christ. We vote for someone who we think can do this particular job the best and do it to our liking, what we want. So the way government was initially set up is that we are to send someone to do the things that I want them to do. Because you said earlier about what about other people? Well, you can't vote for other people. There's just no way you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you can't get in their minds. And let's just be clear also, it sounds almost self-righteous to say this, but most people don't think about the issue. They don't know about the issues. If you were just to go out and ask folks just basic questions, ask them who was the war of 1812? When was it? Or
Right.
The French Indian War, who was involved in that? Who did we gain our independence from? Just little basic things. A lot of people would be stumped. There was a man on the street interview, I kid you not, and the questions were, who fought in the Civil War? People said the East versus the West, us versus Canada. It's like, wow.
Mhm.
And so some of those folks are going to vote. Nothing you can do about it. That guy's vote, that gal's vote counts just as much as yours. So you vote your own view. If you want this to be done, then vote for that. I think whatever you do as a believer, whatever you do, the believer in you should come out. If you're going to, really, East and West, Jess, if you're going to the store, people should know, hey, Shawan is a believer. If I go to the movie, Shawan is a believer. If someone cuts me off in traffic, Shawan is a believer. If my boss yells at me, or I'm the boss and I got to yell at someone else, Shawan is a believer. So if I vote, I'm voting, Shawan is a believer. How does that translate? It's not to say that the person you're voting for is morally representative of you, but I want them to do these things. And then you just weigh those things out. And that's all you can do. And now, if you don't want to get in an argument with someone or back and forth, then I would just say, don't let anyone know. I don't have a problem with having a conversation with anyone, going back and forth with anyone about what I think politically, and what I think works, because I always say, well, let's look at the examples, and then let's just drill down and see. It was the same thing when I was running an investment firm. People would have different concepts of what makes money, what causes the stock market to rise, things like that. So we just talk about it, and then most folks, when you reason with them, okay. Typically, though, when we're in these big chambers and you got a lot of folks with different opinions, it's hard to get a person to change their mind unless they're the only one and everyone else is there. So if you got one Democrat in a room with 500 thoughtful Republicans, not just 500 loud, just obnoxious Republicans, that person might change, and vice versa. A Republican in a room full of thoughtful Democrats, that might change. But if they're name calling and it's evenly split, you're not going to really change, because people don't want to be wrong. More than the desire to want to be right, the greater desire is to not be wrong. But
I think my
go ahead, I'm
biggest
sorry.
thing about this abortion issue, like
Mhm.
that's been, and so I don't advocate for abortion. I do not advocate for abortion, but I look at it from the perspective of the world. God does not make the world choose him. So when it comes to us trying to police the world's values, when God doesn't make us choose him, why are we trying to make the world choose something that we believe, as a part of our values or part of who we are as Christian?
Mhm.
So I think that's tough, because, and I'm just going to be completely transparent, because at 13 years old, I had an abortion.
Mhm.
And when I went to the hospital, they told my mom that I had never been penetrated. So it was just a situation where it was a little horny boy, and he was trying to pin me down, and I ended up pregnant. And
Mhm.
I didn't come from a family where everybody in my family had children as teenagers. None of them graduated from high school. So there was nothing in my family to say, oh, this is an abomination and she's embarrassing us. But for whatever reason, my mom decided to take me to have an abortion.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that was right, but I also know that it wasn't my family values that led her to do that. And I was literally going into the 8th grade. So I think it's a very sensitive topic, and I think it's a very sensitive thing. And I think as women, I don't think people know what you deal with in that moment, and they don't know what you deal with afterwards. And I sympathize. I'm a professor at a college right now, and I sympathize with these children who have no direction, they have no family, they have no God, and nobody's advocating for them. I sympathize with the foster care, kids in foster care. I sympathize with families who want to adopt and don't have tens of thousands of dollars to adopt. So if we're not fixing the issues on the other side of the baby getting here, and I don't advocate for abortion, but I think when you think about all the babies that are being trafficked and molested and all these things, we're only looking at one side of it.
I
And we're
asked
saying that
I
we're
asked a
also saying
person
women.
who this was I was in prison, person who had, now there's a lot of folks in prison who had been molested, and one who had been trafficked, a male who had been trafficked, and I asked him a question, because we had a conversation about abortion while we were locked up, and I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you this: which would you rather? Would you rather be born and have been molested, as horrible as that is, or never have been born at all? He said, "Well, I'd rather chance at life." And now at first he said, "Oh, I'd rather not been born. That's a horrible thing. I grant it's a horrible thing to go through." But I told him, I said, "I noticed though that after going through those things, you didn't kill yourself. I'm pretty sure you didn't take your life, because you're sitting here talking to me. So therefore, even the things that you've gone through tells me that you still choose life. So the most egregious thing that can ever happen to you, you still chose life. And so it's likely that any other baby who would suffer in this world, whatever they're going through, because whatever thing we can think about that someone can go through, being trafficked, being molested, being beat, starving, homeless, on the streets, people go through that and they still fight. It's just part of our nature. We want to live. And so I think we ought to offer that to the kids. Now, can we take care of all of them? No, but here's what we do know. Now, most people who have one abortion tend to have a second abortion. And I know some folks who had them and they regret them, and they, and we don't hold it over their head. You listen, especially at your age, you were
Right.
young. That would have to be super scary. And as a parent, I know some parents that made that decision for their children also because they didn't know what to do with this young kid. This kid is a baby herself or himself. So I get that. I get that. I'll never forget. I was in 6th grade. What are we? 12 years old, and we lived in the projects, and we were walking by an apartment, and there was a girl in there, and there's like 4 or 5 other guys in there. Now, me and the other guys we were with, we wanted to go in there too. Hey, listen, everybody's getting a turn. And so we got in like, no, that's it. Well, afterwards, I was so glad because the girl turned up pregnant. Now, this is back then, and my mother looked at me and said, "No, Mom, I wasn't there. wasn't me." And so the other parents, they were around, and they said, "Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out." And I thank God, I wasn't even a Christian, but I thank God, thank you, that wasn't me to be in a 6th grader. The baby was born, I think, at the end of our 6th grade year or during the summertime. I think it was the summertime. But 6th, 7th grade, that was just bad. I remember this girl named Bad Tanya Brown. She was bad, but she was hot to trot. She was something else. Well, she ended up getting pregnant, and she would always want me to come down. She lived on the same street, but just down. She wanted me to come over. And I never forget my mother telling me, said, I heard your little girlfriend Tanya got pregnant. And I said, well, Mom, it's not me. I said, I know she moved away. She said, but her mama told me. So I can understand how that could feel. And so anyone that's done that, that's had that, that's gone through it, praise God for you coming out of that. But there still are that many millions of people who never got a chance to see life. Most people that have one abortion tend to have a second, right?
But
those people that don't, so let's say you have a baby, the likelihood of you having more, most folks who don't have baby, well, I guess what I'm saying is this: you will take care of the babies. You'll figure out a way to get it done, right? Because remember, 50 years ago we didn't have this. So what did people do then?
I think there are other factors to consider. We can't guarantee, because someone is pregnant, you can't guarantee that she's going to have a healthy pregnancy, that the baby is going to survive the pregnancy. And we have a higher rate of women, Black women especially, who aren't getting proper medical care, even if they have a healthy pregnancy, even if they have a healthy delivery. So because we're not God and we're not sovereign, we don't even know the end of the story to whether she's going to be able to carry this baby. We don't know that she won't develop some type of disease or some type of something during the pregnancy. Like, we're not sovereign. So to say, and then again, I'm not advocating abortion, but I think it's not our rights. It's no more than it's my right to tell a man that he has to go get a vasectomy. No more than it's my right to tell a person that they have to get implants over crowns at the dentist. I think those things are kind of, people should be able to decide their own health stuff.
Okay.
And then God is the sovereign one.
So let's take our time. Let's drill down on this for a little bit. Let me ask you a question. At what age do we make it our responsibility to look after and tend to those children? At what age? Is it when they come out? Do we make sure that, I guess, if child is born and mama decides to leave the child, for a day or 2 or 3 days unattended to, should we concern ourselves with that? No one's there with the child.
So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying on both sides. So if we're going to advocate for no abortions, then we have to fix the other side too. So we have to be involved. We have to understand that some of these women just aren't responsible just because.
Well, but hold on. Let me ask you this. So let me ask you this. This, by the way, this is good. This is good. Let me ask you this. Do you think we'll ever, all the things on the other side of birth, do you think we'll ever fix those things?
Okay, really quick, because I don't want us, I know I did a lot of talking in this video and I'm doing a lot of talking now, but I don't want anyone to leave this video without practicing these 2 things. 1, figuring out what triggers you about any side or any parts of the conversation, And then 2, offering yourself an imagination journaling prompt where you imagine something outside of yourself and why people even think or consider what they're considering. And again, the reason for this is we want to start to have mindful conversations. So all the conversations that I shared today, even though we only had one person that was just sharing their own personal stories, we're learning from it, because when we think about what's going on here, and if you follow me through this entire experience together of looking at, this topic, we had 2 people identified that they had abortions. We had 2 people identified that they were the child of a rape that was aborted. And I just realized this at the end of this, like, that this is what's happening. We have a lot of data to tell us a certain story, and I like that they pulled out data, but I'm also curious are we reporting everything? Are we reporting every single story and every experience? Because some people don't even share these things. And the fact that it's a big topic is because maybe people are having these experiences. But what I love here is that there is a truth for both sides. There are people who decided to have an abortion and they're still alive. God might have mercy on them, might not. I don't know, but do you know that when she's mentioned here, she said God is sovereign. And this is only for people who actually believe in the Bible and or identify as a Christian, because okay. If you believe God is sovereign and you believe God is a forgiving God and you believe that God allows choices, what role do we have? I don't know. I think I wanted to have this question, but I'm not really sure. I'm more interested in the fact that, do you believe that God is sovereign? Do you believe that God allows people to choose life or death? And on the other side, do you believe that your choices, whether you choose life or you choose death, have consequences? This is all an individual thing. That's the point I wanted to make. This is all an individual case, because we all individually will die alone. Maybe we might die next to somebody, but that death itself happens alone. Our choices are inspired and influenced by other people and the environment and the systems that we have, but it's still our choice. Think about how, what I love about the book of Daniel is that he's in an environment where the choice is that you have a choice to do something that everybody else is doing, but you decide as an individual to put your trust somewhere else. You decide as an individual to choose life for yourself. This is where I stand when it comes to putting so much stock in government and these policies, instead of having a lot of stock in our own community building. So when they talk about voting, we're talking about it on the national level, but our community, that's where I will put most of my stock in. Kieran, is in your own community. What are the decisions that are made on that level? Sometimes we go straight to the top, but when it comes to our decision making, our environments, our communities, the way that we talk to each other, that is at the very bottom. That's how we build up and get to a point where we are fighting like babies on the internet, when we're saying these crazy things without any validity, when we're dismissing the fact that people have personal stories. And what I love here is that everyone had a personal story to show. So everyone is being impacted by their own storyline and their belief systems. So we have to really sit down and really cultivate and understand what it's like. I imagine that people who have a strong belief system, you don't have to argue yourself to that belief system. You just have to exist in it. And I am at the point where I probably might seem a little bit preachy and a little bit argumentative, like everyone choose life. Okay. But I'm actually saying pro-choice is the option to choose life. I don't know if anyone has said that before, but I don't see. Let's just keep watching, y'all. I'm passionate.
I don't think God gave us that commission. I think our commission is to spread the gospel so we can stop women from having senseless pregnancies.
But let's say they do have them though. But if they do, if they do have these senseless pregnancies, as you say, we know for a fact that all the issues, the problems that we have outside of abortion, once the baby's born, They're gonna always be. We're always gonna have poverty. We're always gonna have depraved men and women around. There's always gonna be those things.
Wait, y'all. This is what I wanted to say. I'm almost done, y'all. This video is done and I'm gonna be going. Wasn't it interesting that she said that men do not have anyone making them get a vasectomy? What I'm starting to learn about this whole gender war thing in the United States of America on Earth is that even from the beginning of time, we don't realize that we shift a lot of blame on the woman, but we also say the woman's a weaker vessel. We also think that women are like children. Let's say that that's a theory. But we don't put the emphasis on the fact that the leadership is coming from the man. So anything that we blame women and children for is based off of the leadership of the man. A woman actually, I don't know if any of y'all know this. I don't know if any of y'all know this. But from my understanding on earth, a woman cannot get pregnant by herself. She just cannot get pregnant by herself. It takes a man. It actually takes a man who's able to, okay, for her to have the baby. So these are decisions made by two individuals. And in some cases, not all cases, one individual is supposed to be the leader and supposed to be that safety and that security for the decision that he also involved himself in order to have the stability. Even if a man does not choose to stay with the woman, he chose to use something in his body that provides a life source. So we have to really have a full conversation about this. And I'm not passionate about this for any other reason besides the fact that we don't look at both sides of the story. I'm more passionate about us looking at both sides of the story. If a man is involved in this, where like, let's just think about it. What would the conversation sound like if it was like the government says men need to all get vasectomy if they don't know how to take care of their children, if they're going to leave baby mamas to be out here by themselves? What if that was a storyline? Like, would the men be okay with that? It's so interesting. What if we had both of them? What if the decision was men and women, y'all get yourself in a situation because y'all choose death with the person that you decide to give your life and energy with. But we have to make room for people making mistakes, right? We have to make room for people making mistakes. Because y'all know who made a mistake? David. David made a big mistake. If y'all read the Bible story, even if you don't believe in the Bible or whatever, ain't that crazy? He not only took another person's wife, he killed him. He killed a whole husband. That's murder. That's crazy. Go. But if I believe in this Bible, I would have to believe the same storyline that God had mercy on him. And the same breath, God made it so that he was not a liar, because if you do this, this will happen. For instance, if you keep my commandments, what will happen? If you have a soft answer, will you turn away wrath? I don't know. I've been playing around with that. It don't work all the time, but if you keep trying, if you're sincere about it, most of the times, if you do this, look at the Bible, y'all. And if you don't want to look at the Bible, you want to make this easy for yourself, look on Google. Look at all the if statements in the Bible and see if you start to see that line up. Because what's interesting is I was reading earlier, you don't see any content that says right out, for instance, do not have sex before marriage. Some people change that to mean one way or the other, but you don't see that flat out. You don't see do not have an abortion, but you'll see the themes in the story or the understanding and the wisdom that makes it so you understand, hey, if you're going to be with a man or a woman that you do not want to marry, you don't want to have a life with, doesn't make sense for you to become one. Because I don't know. We all made the mistakes. I made the mistakes of choosing bad partners. I made the mistakes of um having no trust in God. I made a mistake in fearing men. I know that mistakes exist. And this is why I also know that mercy and grace and resurrecting those their decisions to bring more life also has a place. So we're not talking about pro-life and pro-choice. Let me just finish the video so I can get out of here because that would go to 2 hours, y'all. If you stay here, say hello.
So does that mean since we can't fix that, we don't fix the life issue?
No, so this is what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're going to advocate for something, then let's have a solution. So my solution would be you can have a Planned Parenthood, but also in the Planned Parenthood, we have parents who can come and adopt without having to be able to afford tens of thousands of dollars. We can have parenting classes for parents so that when they come and say, I want an abortion, we can give them alternatives like you don't have to have an abortion because you have the support.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in an environment where it wasn't that my mother wasn't responsible. It was that my mother did not know what she did not know because of the background she came from. She had my brother at 15, me at 16, my other brother at 17. My dad was a heroin addict in and out of jail. I know my mother gave me the best of herself, which wasn't, adequate parenting, but she gave me what she knew to give me.
But
so I think.
But here's a problem that I think that we need to focus on. And that's why I asked you the question, at what age, at what point in this child's life do we make it our responsibility to make sure that this child is getting what they can? Now, we can't go and give them, we can't make the mother feed the child the best nutritional things. We can't make the father be responsible. We can't make the teacher teach them the best as they grow up, but we want to at least advocate for those things and then give them the opportunity. So the reason why I asked what age, well, obviously the day that they can open their eyes and breathe on their own, right? Well, the issue is, though, what's the difference between that baby on this side of the womb versus the other side of the womb? Biologically, there's no difference, right?
Well, the problem is we're trying to regulate what a woman does on the front end, but then on the back end, if she doesn't do her what she's supposed to do, she still goes to jail. Nobody else is held responsible for what happens on the other side. So now she's go to jail on the. So
you said nobody's held responsible. What do you mean?
Well, if a man walks away from the child, he can sign his rights over and be scot-free of it. Like a mother, our responsibility.
Well, hold on. If Bob gets married pregnant, he can't just walk away.
If Bob wants to sign his rights away, he can just walk away.
There's no court in America that's going to let him do that. He's going to have to pay child support
at
the very least.
I mean. No, I don't. You don't have to pay child support. Like if I want to give my child up for adoption, I can give my child up for adoption.
You can put the child up, but there's no state that doesn't force the father. There's not one state that doesn't force the father to pay. So he's got to pay. He can't. Excuse me.
As a father, I don't have the right to sign my rights over as a father. I don't want anything to do with this baby.
No. The only way that can happen, the only way that the father can sign his rights over is if there's another person that stepped in and became the father, but even still, the court is still going to force him to. There are certain situations where the court can sever the father's parental rights. However, him just walking away, the courts will not sever his parental rights just because he doesn't feel like it. As a matter of fact, the court's going to drill deeper. And in certain states, if you don't pay your child support, there is no, well, he's 18. Nope, you still got to pay all those 18 years worth. If he's 47 and you went 18 years without paying, you got to pay it. So that means that 60, 65, you got to keep paying. And so like in Texas, you don't just get off just because. So there's no state that's going to allow you to just sever your responsibility. But here's the thing though. Here's the issue. Is it illegal in every state? Because it is, for a mother to do drugs while she's pregnant.
Yeah.
It is. So even with this child that hadn't been born, we still force the mothers to not do certain things to their bodies. Matter of fact, we still force human beings not to do certain things with their body.
Well, if you get caught with drugs, whether you are pregnant or not, it's illegal. So the drugs are illegal regardless of whether you're pregnant or not. So it's not that you're not enforcing that on just women. Men, if they're caught doing drugs, it's illegal.
But in
So
some
what I'm
places
saying,
she can't ingest certain things with a baby.
right? But she can ingest anything but an illegal substance, and she can ingest alcohol if she wants to with a baby. That's not illegal. It's not illegal for someone to drink. It's not good for the baby, but it's not illegal.
So at what point? Because we know that we care for the baby from day one.
But see, I think it's the problem. Like I care about the baby, but you're not going to be able to call me for diapers. And then if you don't have adequate health care because you can't, either you have a job that doesn't provide it or you can't afford health care, then what happens with a woman who is pregnant, who cannot afford health care, not even for herself, but what about this baby that now needs a pediatrician, but she can't?
Then she's got two options. She's got two options, and I think both options are preferable. Not, I think that they're preferable to killing the baby. Either put the baby up for adoption, or she can go and get government assistance. If she can't afford to take care of the baby medically and so forth, then every state allows for some sort of government assistance. If she makes more, because the issue is this, there are two things we have to consider. First of all, the baby is innocent. The baby didn't say, "Mom and Daddy, y'all get together and do whatever y'all gonna do." And so the responsibility is not hoisted upon the government or the people; it's on that person.
Right,
and so we do the best we can. But
if I know I cannot, and again, I just want to keep it reiterating that I am not an advocate for abortion. I just don't. I think we are playing God. Like we're judging, and God does not ask us or commission us to judge the world. God says that we can judge other Christians, but He's not commissioning us to judge the world. So, and God is not asleep, and God is not at Starbucks when people are doing what they're doing. He said this world is gonna be corrupt. So we can't now pick and choose which parts of the world that we're gonna police as Christians and say it's evil. It's all evil. It's evil when the abortions are evil, the premarital sex is evil, the women that don't have husbands and don't have, kids that don't have family units, that's evil. All of it is evil. So I think it's disheartening to me as a Christian who absolutely loves God and Jesus, and I love people, to be in this place to where I think we're overstepping what we were called.
So here's our responsibility. Here is our.
Y'all can listen to the responsibility. I think I made this video long enough. Check out the video. I'll put all the video links in the description. But I want to close out with this. I started and I was inspired by these pieces of content. They came through different times of the year, but after watching the Harley Initiated video, I was inspired to talk about this morality. And I think that pro-life and pro-choice need to live together. Just like I think that men and women need to work together, that we need to see leadership on both sides, because I know that we both have gifts that we can offer to the world together. We all individually have gifts that we can offer to the world together. And there's something about building on morals that will help us in the biggest conversation that I hear amongst all these different experiences is the lack of money. There's a scripture in Ecclesiastes that tells you that money answereth all things. So we are going to answer a lot of our issues with money. The way that we steward our money, the way that we put programs and teach about money, these are all based off of a moral system. The morals is that we want to make sure that we can live peacefully amongst all men. And so that means that there's some pride, there might be some sacrifice, there might be consideration of other people, so that we can cultivate an environment where people don't feel like they have to get rid of a child and serve their life. But let's go a little bit further, that we don't kill each other with our tongues, that we don't murder physically because we don't know how to have conversations and see from other points of views. When at one point in my life, I used to watch a lot of these For My Man and what's the other show? Not Criminal Minds. There's another show where people are just killing each other based off of their relationships, right? I like the Harley Initiated podcast because we're talking about building relationships but this conversation about pro-life and pro-choice is it starts with relationships. Right? The reason why a woman might go out and sing the abortion song is because the relationship or lack of relationship that she has at home. I believe that there are people who may come from homes with a good mom and a good dad who tried their best, who was financially stable, who had morals, that might go out and act up. But if someone's really going to take a poll on that, my theory is that those who have just well-minded, intentional parents are going to produce the fruit of children who aren't going to make the world that we see right now. So we do have a history that we have to consider. We do have choices that was made before us. We do have environments that make it so. Like when this woman is having this argument, Shawan, okay, Shawan did a really good job at bringing the other side of the conversation, even though she sits in what we, most Christians will sit in a place where it is just about the death of that child. But remember, Kamala and Trump were little babies. They were babies. Pro-life, pro-choice. They're here. They exist because someone made the decision to keep them. But y'all don't like some of their lives. Some of y'all, somebody tried to kill one of them. So when we talk about pro-life, we got to talk about pro-life and pro-choices. The choices to choose good. She mentioned evil a lot here. I know the conversation between evil and good seems great to some people, but really, is it that great? We might not always do our best and we might not always choose good, but I think a lot of us know that there is a foundation that can be made on choosing good. That's just about choices. I know it's difficult, and I want to make sure that I consider the fact that it's hard to live in this world and to make decisions and to be blindsided, to be blamed, to not feel love. But what if? I know this sounds like it's, kumbaya and the world's gonna be a great place, and I look at the world, but I have confidence in you, intelligent, wise people, that there is something in you that wants to do better, and you individually can start choosing life. I'm done, y'all, because y'all know I like to talk. And I just pray that I'm not a fool with many words, because I know that I be talking and sometimes it don't make sense. But if this allowed you to even consider, I think the only point out of these 2 hours that we spent together is I just want you to consider what your triggers are again. If you can see it from a different perspective, if there is any accountability that you can do to support. If you are someone who is pro-life, I want you to be supporting. I want you to create systems. I want you to be in your community, finding out how programs can help those who don't know, who don't have the answers, who don't have the support system, who was raised with an ideology that makes it hard for them to see good or to see why life matters. For those who decide that, my body, my choice, I would love for you to consider, are you doing this? Are you being accountable for the choices that you make? Are there any testimonies and stories that you can even consider or hear about those who did decide to let go of their babies that might make you consider something different? Have you looked at all the resources that you have? Do you feel like there's a world set up for you to be successful with this if you look for it? Because even though I feel like there are people who are pro-life without any solutions, I think there are people who are pro-life with resources and communities to help you. But at this rate, I am just a human being in the United States of America trying to survive Earth and all of the experiences. And I could say something that might not hit for you, but it might hit for the other person. And I'm just here because I'm one of those people that I'm inspired by content. Some people have shared their stories, shared their perspective, and it's definitely helped me for the good. And so that's the only reason I'm on here yapping. Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.